Hi, my name is Tony Sheridan. I'm the Managing Director and founder of a company called Makers Retail in the UK. Over the past 2 decades, I've been heavily involved in the creative industry, in associations with in the United States, Europe and the UK. And I'm finding it's not a great opportunity at the moment to be in this industry at a time when we're able to affect some positive change with the circumstances that sit around us. So I'm here today to talk about a few things and how we believe those consumers and buying habits are changing through the course of the pandemic over the last several months. What we need to do as retailers and people in our industry to adapt to what's happened, and then look at how we need to connect and engage, and how we do that, not just with our customers, but also with our supply chains and anybody that we're associated with, I suppose, in business on a day-to-day basis. And I mentioned a couple of things to how, as the creative industry in the UK, looking to try and bridge some of these gaps we're identifying. So first and foremost, I think what I'd like to say is we've got to use these difficult times as an opportunity and adapt and change rather than go back. And we've got to really think about, how were we working before, but understand that isn't how we're going to work in the future. We've got to strive for change, and when we find that change, push forward with some really positive forward momentum. Now, even myself doing this today, in the past I've operated TV shopping channels, and I'm not used to being in front of a camera. I'm used to being behind the camera. But having to do this in this circumstance rather than being able to meet face to face is just one of those things. We have to adapt to if we're going to continue to do business. So we've all got to find these opportunities and niches within our business to push forward with that positive momentum that I commented on a second ago. So what I want to do in this chat is just go through a few things that we're looking to do in our business, and we're finding people are doing across the industry as a whole to, I suppose, try and forge a way forward through what's been, as we all know, a very difficult time. However, let's look at some of these points. So first and foremost, as I mentioned earlier, we can't go back to pre-COVID and expect to develop a business from that point we had. Things have changed, markets have changed, people have changed, behaviours have changed. So first and foremost, we need to create a new baseline. And that new baseline is also difficult when you're not quite understanding what the future might hold in terms of consumer behaviour, or even the ability to sell directly face-to-face or otherwise. But it is important that we look at our businesses, we understand its weaknesses and its strengths, and reposition, adapt, but build that new baseline. What is the new zero? We can then start to think about from a I suppose, overall management and control perspective, how do we ensure we have the even cash flows and revenue streams to push forward with the new challenges that are ahead. So the only way you can do that is really understand what your business is today and what it needs to be over the course of the coming months. I think it's quite difficult for us to be able to look 12 months into the future. We can have a view of what 12 months in the future may be, but I think we have to plan on a week by week basis. And if it needs putting a new baseline in monthly, we have to do that. In my business, we have weekly checks around not just what the consumer's doing, but actually what's our supply chain doing. And that's one area I want to talk about a little bit that I think is important to allow you and enable you to put that new baseline in place. So for example, I think have enjoyed in the course of the last several months in this particular industry, an increase in sales. And those increases of sales have been driven by the fact that people have had time, and time has enabled them to engage in things as a respite to the bad news to create. And therefore using the products that we're using in our industry and developing in our industry to serve that, I suppose, enjoyment, whether it be collectively or individually within their household. Now, one of the things I heard consistently over the course of the last few months is a shortage of product. Now, that's good and bad news. The good news is people are buying products from people in this industry. I suppose one of the difficult aspects is there's not been enough product to service the probable demand in the industry. I know myself in my business, we could have done far more sales had we been able to service the sales that we had potentially coming in from a consumer perspective. So this does really suggest that, is there a gap in terms of really understanding the supply chain and how we access products? These associations and these shows, forums and seminars are a great way to try and engage. But what we've got to make sure when we do this is our suppliers understand where the products are in their supply chain. So the key aspects of this: work with the supply chain, understand what you may need, understand where that product is coming from. Is it sourced locally? Is it manufactured locally? Is this product manufactured in a far-reaching corner of the world where they have their own issues that may affect that supply chain, not just basically today, but maybe over the course of the coming months? And one of the things we're doing in our business is identifying short-term supply, maybe from more localized suppliers, which actually benefits everybody around you now, but also ensure we've got what we need for the forwarding months, and using our new baseline to try and forecast what that actually might be. I'm absolutely 100% certain we won't get that right. But what we've got to do is try and have a good understanding of what it could be, and within the confines of what we're able to do within our business, support and back that decision. But we'll still review that weekly, and to ensure that we're not either going to be overstocked or understocked, but more importantly, we understand where our supply chain is at that moment in time. So the call out on that really is understand your supply chain, make sure they understand you, make sure we understand where that product's coming from, and make sure you understand what's going to drive the sale and what you may need to do to ensure that you secure that. That then backs into the next key aspect, which is cash and finance. So we've identified our baseline, and as part of our supply chain, we've understood the opportunities that we have in front of us. So we need to understand then, what does that mean financially? There may be less credit available at the moment. If you're a newer business, you may find it more difficult to get credit. If you're an established business, there may be the credit insurers have removed insurance cover in this particular sector. Although we're not seeing that at the moment, that could happen at any time, subject to circumstance that's out of our control. So let's not forget about that. Even if we have the product and we have the view of where the supply chain is, we have to be able to pay for it at some stage. And what we don't want to do in this circumstance is create an additional burden in terms of debt on top of what we may already be carrying in our businesses through either the various schemes that our various governments have laid open to us, or deferments that we may have taken advantage of, whether it be your localized VAT, or other payments that would be due to the Treasury. So I can't stress enough the importance of this baseline, understanding what your new business is, not your old business, your new business, understanding that supply chain and making sure financially you can support that. So that's some hard fact in terms of we have to do it. That's a point of reality. It's not a point of, yeah, I think it'll be okay. I think it's not good enough. because of this uncertainty, we need to make sure we're aware. So what is the customer doing? How is the customer engaging? I'm sure through all the different countries that people have a different view as to how, in principle, the customer is behaving at a particular time, as we all go through the circumstances of the previous months in different stages. But I think collectively, we know there's been a hard hit to the high streets across Europe. But what has definitely happened is the customers have engaged digitally. And I think we've all seen this element where the digital experience for our customers has been enhanced, and actually people that have never really thought about engaging in the digital landscape are now, converts, if you like. So a couple of examples. If you think of a crafter or maker that has predominantly gone to a store to service their needs with regards to their crafting or making fix, they've had to change that behavior because the stores weren't available to them for many, many, many months. So they've had to reach out online, and that's quite a strange experience for some of them. Others, it's natural, but in either way, how they're spending their money changed. Now, it's our responsibility, and has been our responsibility, and will continue to be our responsibility, to ensure we're engaging that customer. A lot of that is down to education. And if for one thing, whether it be the creative, the making, the stationery industries, we thrive on creativity. That's what we do, that's our business. So this is the time we have to enhance what we give back to the customer and understand we may have to do that a little bit more. In our business, we've engaged with our Facebook Lives more than we had done previous. We grew our business initially on being able to meet the customer face-to-face in stores, at consumer retail shows. That wasn't an option for us. But our customers still wanted that connectivity. So we used the mechanisms we're using here today on some digital platforms, in terms of whether it be Zoom, Google Meet, or Facebook, to try and maintain that one-to-one, or at least one-on-group experience, rather than just leaving it to pre-recorded content that has been on YouTube for a long time, and we're leaving it to our customer to go and find it. They need the help, but moreover, wanting that engagement. And guess what they're doing as a reward? They're converting and spending money. Because if they're sat there at home in their family unit, they have to find things that engage. And they've done that over the course of the last 6 months, 7 months. So what have we now got? We've got potential new customers. We've got actual new customers. But these customers need continual service and support. And we've all got that obligation, whether we're a supplier or whether we're a retailer, whether we're a bricks and mortar retailer or whether we're a digital retailer. But most importantly, that customer wants engagement. But when we communicate to the customer, we need to be very, very careful to how we do that. The amount of emails I get on a daily basis that'll say special announcement, special message, important, COVID update. To be fair, I think we know what's happening from the news channels and from the various agencies about the COVID update and where we are. We need to be talking positively to the customer. We need to be inspiring them. We need to pull them out of the negativity to where they are. Think about the individuals that are there and wanting to reach out, who have their own issues. We have a responsibility as a creative industry to help engage people that may be suffering with their own mental challenges, because it's well documented that through creativity, it's a great, I suppose, gift for somebody who may be having some challenges in that space. And so I think it's very important that when we are communicating to people, how would you communicate that person one-to-one? You wouldn't say in their face, COVID special message. We'd be showing, and we'll be engaging in a better way than I think we are. And I think this is from big companies, smaller companies, and new companies, all using that almost fear message to try and engage with their customer. It's not necessary. The customer communication is key. And actually, in my business, we've determined and made the decision. If we engage this customer now, we are absolutely building an opportunity to keep this customer for life. Who they engage with today, I think they'll remember for a long time. So what do we need to do after we've I suppose, communicated well, converted that customer? It's how we treat them thereafter. So our customer service, our delivery messages, don't all have to be apologetic about what we're doing and why we're doing it, why we're doing it fast, why we're doing it slow. Just do it right. And I think that's our obligation as a retailer or a partner, whether your customer is a trade account or whether your customer is the end consumer. The way we service, I think, is going to be important, but the great news is it's going to be remembered. So I think from an opportunity perspective, if we communicate properly, engage properly, you'll win the customer. I think the customer wants to be won, but then we can keep the customer by how we then look after them post that transaction. Again, whether it's trade or whether that's or direct to the consumers. So in effect, we're having to adapt, I think, for a better way. And it's when we've mentioned before around right at the beginning, I said, why would we go back to how we were performing prior to this pandemic when we have an opportunity to really look forward, look at the opportunities that we've secured through this, the adversity we've gone through to maintain ourselves in a business environment, securing those customers, and hopefully we're all doing that, but absolutely having the opportunity to build that true lifetime value and trust with that customer and engage and build that forward momentum. So I think it's a very important fact that we shouldn't put to one side, that communication piece to customer. If we go into all this method of doing the Facebook Lives, these one-to-one and engagement sessions, if we're not communicating correctly, that there's something wrong there. I'm sure you've all experienced, either with regret because you're one of the people that have done this, or companies that have done this, or you've been at the other end of what I'm about to say. How many times have we been to trade shows and left our card, our details, looking forward to receiving the information from that customer, and it doesn't come? And what we've got to do in this circumstance is understand every single contact you make in this current time needs to be followed through to the end, whether it's a successful sale or relationship or not, but maybe you'll learn along that journey. Now, there's been various percentages thrown out over the time across various trade shows across Europe. I think it's quite a normalized view that only a quarter of inquiries that are obtained from these shows are followed up. That's sacrilege, isn't it? These are the times now when you wish you'd followed those up. So one thing we must do is when we have these engagement sessions, whether it be one-to-one, in a group, the companies putting these on for us as retailers, we've got to engage, and we've got to make sure that if people come on with the time to give their time to try and engage with you, give them the benefit of at least following through. And that can be whether you're selling or you're buying. I think it's one of those aspects we need to change that mentality of, I won't follow it up, or why hasn't somebody followed it up? I think we've all experienced that. So we've spoken about baseline, we've spoken about setting that financial position around your supply chain, understanding how the customer needs to be engaged with and how we communicate to the customer. But then we need to come back to a very important thing, and it's our people. I think when we're looking at any engagement externally always seems to be easier. But one thing that it's really brought to my central focus is my people through this time, where there's been support. We've been, whether it's classed as lucky enough, or whether it's or whatever the term is, all my people have stayed working through this pandemic, and they've wanted to stay engaged and make sure we have something at the other side, whenever the other side is. So I'm making sure that all my people, make sure they feel that, I don't know if I want to use the word loved, supported, feel part of the family, because I think it has definitely been a family in through difficult times over the course of the last several months. And what I've needed them to do is now allow us and help us to plan ahead. So when we mentioned before about the new baseline, we've talked about going forward and how we do that, how we, again, supply chain, customer, our digital experience, how we're engaging. The plan ahead bit still needs to be done. And what I would suggest in this, and my advice would be, most companies still have their 3-year plans. Don't throw out the 3-year plan. We've just got to adapt to what that might be. And with the things that we've learned through the changing aspects of our baseline and everything that I've mentioned above, how will that change that 3-year plan? If you haven't got a 3-year plan, I think you need one. I think you need to understand where that opportunity is. It may be in a sector that you may not have identified with before. So some of the great people that are going to be hopefully listening to this will come from various parts of the stationery, creative, making industry. Look at your immediate adjacencies. How can you transfer what you do into other sectors within just this industry? How can you transfer what you have as an opportunity into another industry? I think this is the first time people are willing to listen. Experience I've had through our wholesale aspect of our business, people have not even been interested in making or creative products in the last 10 years are suddenly very interested because they see there's a significant growth over the course of the last few months. So there's a great, I suppose, part of our forward planning document that we see. We don't just have to stick to our knitting, if you pardon the pun. We can look outside of where our current central business is, look at our immediate adjacencies and who else may be interested in our product. And I mentioned product in this aspect as a very, very important part of what I want to say in the final few minutes that I'm talking. Innovation. We can't be scared of investing into innovative product. I would say that the biggest prohibitor to growth currently is product. The biggest opportunity for growth is product. If you have your idea, if you have your theory, engage, make, release, speak to people in the associations. So for example, the Creative Industry Association in the UK, we've been looking at how do we make sure in this time we engage people and bring them together. So weekly, the CEO in the UK, Craig D'Souza, has been running these weekly seminars online, which is what do I know? And all he's doing is bringing A and B together and trying to connect them. I've got product, or I've got sales opportunity, and they're talking weekly. Every week, business is being written, new opportunities are being sought, and that's great news. But, and it's a big but, I believe this industry has been stifled with innovation over the past few years as some of the big retailers, whether it be in America, across Europe or in the UK, have amalgamated resources, consolidated. It means actually there's been less opportunity to put innovation into market. And a lot of innovators and suppliers have been scared to do that in case they can't sell the product. Please, 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 the message at the moment is there is a shortage of innovation in this creative market. If you have an idea, engage with somebody, someone you know, someone you trust, reach out and build new relationships through these associations, through the shows, through this principle that we're on today, this platform, and really see how you can move that forward momentum, as I mentioned at the beginning. Strive to move forward. And if you have that, this is the time to do it. The amount of new companies that I think will come out of this will be fantastic. There's going to be a harsh reality that, and unfortunately, people are and will continue to lose their jobs. But that also can spur an opportunity. If you're creative, reach out to the creative industries. Reach out to creators who are actually in this industry to see how you can engage and put your innovation into what is, by its name, a creative industry. And that's the bit that really drives me and my team at the moment, that there's a need for product. Therefore, if you have one, engage with the right people, whether it be like the Creative Industry Association in the UK, whether it be any of the events that run across Europe, this platform, but make sure you do that. That's part of your forward planning, that's your planning ahead, and that's whether that's establishing new business or really trying to put and lay down a new baseline for future business. Very, very important. Become the supply chain, become the feeder of creativity and innovation. And my last point, and this is quite held close to my heart, this actually, that we have thousands and thousands and thousands across Europe of independent retailers. We have hundreds of national retailers, all of which, pre the current circumstance, had these fantastic face-to-face community-led initiatives that were bringing communities together, whether they were schools, universities, help groups, the care homes, in their store, community halls across Europe and beyond. That stopped, but the people haven't stopped being creative. So I mentioned earlier, if we can engage digitally, please do so. If we can connect to people that we may be that aren't having access to this creativity that used to, let's do that. But more importantly, as our high streets and our communities start to come back together, I think it's extremely important that if you did do that before, that's the one thing we should still harness and ensure we do that again, and as soon as we can. We have an accountability to re-engage, and we could actually be, as creatives within this creative industry, a linchpin to building back community by engaging people in groups, whether they need help, whether they need, some people have been in care homes or in isolation for several months. They desperately demand, want, need, shout for this connectivity with people. So there is an opportunity to bounce back, because we can use that as the catalyst to re-engage, get people back into stores, get people back into community groups, making, sharing, engaging, and with Christmas ahead of us, with an opportunity, to make it, very special in that regard, that, people, however they can connect at this time, at least where it is possible, we're doing our job as a creative industry to do so. And so whether it's so how have we changed, how consumers changed their buying behavior? How have they changed their engagement? They've changed, I think, for the positive, because they've become open-minded. They'll engage in store when they can. They've become more savvy with that digital experience and actually want that and feed from it, that education. That's now what we need to do. We need to, as retailers and suppliers, adapt our business, create our baselines, really put together our strategies and plan ahead as much as possible. And as an industry, we need to collectively come together and ensure we help everybody within it, whether they need help, support, connectivity, sharing of information, whatever that needs to be, they should be seen as part of our greater family. And what I know and I have seen, people are there and willing to do that. So that engagement is key. And all I can say is, I hope and wish everybody a fruitful rest of year, and with their plans that hopefully if you've not already got, you'll start to put in place. Have a strong 2021, 22 and 23 and beyond. I hope you found some of that information useful. Connect with us with the details that are given. If you want any more information, help or support. But thank you and appreciate your time, and good luck. Goodbye.